Hello friends, welcome back to the next session on operations planning, scheduling and control. Now let's begin with our learning. In this particular session, we'll be understanding and dealing with the concepts of master's schedule, the learning objectives. At the end of this session, the learner will be able to understand what do we mean by master schedule, what is the importance of master schedule, and what are the various activities that are being undertaken under the master schedule. Now let's begin with our learning. Firstly, we'll understand the meaning or the concept of master schedule. In case of an operational activity, what we are doing, we are conducting a series of activities, and when the series of activities are being undertaken, the activities are being planned right from the input of raw materials to the completion of the finished product. This particular series of activities is a well coordinated series of activities about which clarifies about what activity will be conducted at what phase. In the final phase in the operations design and construction is scheduling and workstation planning. So during the process of input to the output from the organization, a series of activities needs to be planned. And at the final stage, a schedule is being prepared and the workstation planning is being undertaken. Before starting a particular process, the schedule of activities are being undertaken. That is, at what level or at what place or point of time, which activity will be performed. If a particular activity is being performed, then what will be the stage that will be utilized and in what way material will be consumed. So for those particular concern, the workstation planning is essentially important. The workstation planning clearly identifies or gives you a certain understanding about what are the various activities that will be conducted over a period of time. So, during the translation of the product from input to the output level, the operation scheduling and workstation planning plays an important role, which gives you a certain understanding or a clear picture about the movement of goods and services into organization. Now, understanding the concept of scheduling. Scheduling is the process of producing a certain quantity of product within a specified time frame. So, when we say that we need to manufacture a certain product or certain commodity, what will be the steps or procedures that will be undertaken so that the quantity of product that is been desired is been completed or it is been achieved or it is been manufactured within the specified time frame. So the time frame is essentially important, and within the time frame, if the material is being produced or manufactured, then we can say that there is an effective master schedule. The workplace planning is allocating the resources with a focus on job with the earliest delivery time. So when we say that there should be a focus of job on a certain consideration for those particular thing, the workstation planning is essentially required. The master schedule focuses on the series of activities for completion of the product or of a certain production quantity, but workstation planning ascertains the availability of resources, availability of goods or material at the delivery point of time for effective utilization and completion of the production stage. Now the concept of operations planning. Now, there is a certain correlation between the master schedule that has been prepared and the operational plan which is into existence. The operational planning focuses on the concept of scheduling, which is the resultant or concerned with both the time and resources allocation of the factors of production. Factors of production, that is the land, labor, capital, material, enterprise, and resources, its availability, and how both these or all these factors of production will be coordinated with the operational plan and the master's schedule. Planning of operations is done at the part of the short-term planning processes. So at several stages, this particular concept of operational planning will be or can be implemented at the short-term basis or on the long-term basis. Usually, the operational planning and the master schedule are implemented for the short-term activities which are needed to be undertaken in the organization. The level of goals of the organization are quite different from the strategic level to the operational level. And when the operational goals are needed to be implemented, we need to see that the proper human resource is being allocated, the cost is being controlled, the resources that have been required are readily made available, and there is a proper availability of raw material with the inventory or the stores department. Simultaneously, one has to see that whenever there is a master schedule into existence, all the activities that have been decided to be conducted should be completed within the specified time frame. And hence, time plays an important role for completion of those activities within a specified time. The resources that the company has been using, all those resources should be effectively utilized, and accordingly the natural and the scarce resources should be made to see that their resources are being consumed in an effective way. The concept of operations management with respect to the just-in-time, the manufacturing requirement planning, material requirement planning, or manufacturing resource planning, all the principles should be applied, and accordingly a global market scenario environment should be implemented. The environment with respect to the external or the internal nature needs to be there in a controlled way, and as a result of this, the production scheduling was essentially important. So for those particular concern, the production scheduling or the master scheduling was being implemented, and accordingly each and every activity was being decided about what process can be conducted in a specified time frame. Now let's understand what are the various important tasks that have been performed by the operation scheduling. Majorly, the operation scheduling perform the following tasks. Number one, the allocation of resources. So, allocation of resources or factors of production at the time of production level is essentially important. For this particular concern, the operations planning or the master scheduling plays a very important role. The workforce scheduling. Workforce scheduling focuses on the concept of availability of labor as and when it is being required. So, allocation of resources with respect to the labor, with respect to the workforce, whether it is a skilled or an unskilled amount that is being required, all those scheduling of those particular activities is the concepts of operation scheduling. And lastly, the production equipment scheduling. When there is a change in a certain amount of technology or the certain amount of goods and services according to the quality changes, then for those particular concern, new techniques or machine needs to be hired. So production equipment scheduling, that is the availability and requirement of equipments for producing or manufacturing the goods and services, is essentially important, and hence the operation scheduling needs to be undertaken. Now let's understand the various three main objectives of the project or the production scheduling. The three main objectives of the production scheduling are putting emphasis on the delivery date, that is a specified time period, reducing the job time on machines, and lastly, appropriate use of the work centers. So, the delivery date plays a very important role, wherein we have to see, or one has to take care that whatever delivery date or the time is been specified, the production activity should be completed within the specified time period, and all the activities related to the production planning are being specified or completed with respect to the master schedule that has been prepared. Reducing the job time on machines. So the time consumption of each and every job that has been conducted on the machines needs to be reduced at every stage or point of time, which saves the additional production unit, and accordingly the production quantity that has been ascertained, it also increases simultaneously. Appropriate use of the work centers. So once the work centers in the organization are being identified with respect to the cost, with respect to the allocation of resources, with respect to the availability of people or the labor, all the resources are needed to be applied in an effective way, and accordingly control on work centers is essentially required. Now let's understand what are the various operations scheduling principles. Here in this particular slide you can see what are the various principles of an operations scheduling activity. That is ensuring a consistent work routine. So the routine work in the organization should be very consistent on a continuous basis. Only when we can say that the master scheduling or the operation scheduling is working effectively. Removing the bottleneck by completing the job from beginning to an end. A bottleneck is a particular concern that is in the flow of series of activities. If there is a certain hurdle that has been created, then those particular hurdles are called as a bottleneck. So the organization should aim or should try to reduce the number of bottlenecks that may arise, and accordingly they have to see that the activity that has been started from the beginning is ultimately completed to the end of a finished product. Obtaining the feedback so that adjustments may be made easy. As and when the time arises or there is a certain need for taking the feedback from either the shop floor people or from the managers or from the peers or the colleagues or the various interdepartments, all those feedbacks are needed to be taken into account. It should be noted, and accordingly necessary adjustments or changes in the shop floor activity needs to be underdone. The workforce skill set, product and processes improvement. So based on the workforce availability, whether it is a skilled labor or an unskilled labor or a balance between skilled and unskilled, the self-product activity and processing improvements are needed to be taken into account. Scheduling the aids capacity planning and elimination of bottlenecks. Always, the operation scheduling focuses on reducing the number of bottlenecks And the master schedule always also try to see that when those particular bottlenecks have been reduced or they have been eliminated, how the capacity of organization keeps on increasing. Scheduling the aids in different production of orders depending on their due dates. So here, the due date or the delivery time for a certain product plays a very important or a crucial role. So the operation scheduling activity also needs to focus on a certain concept that the orders that have been conducted, the activities that they have been performed are conducted in a very effective way and they have been fulfilled as and when the time arises. Scheduling aids in the orderly completion of the numerous tasks. So several number of tasks can be completed simultaneously, and accordingly, one can become a major perfect competitor or the participants in the operational scheduling processes. Going ahead further, we'll see with what do we mean by operations scheduling and principles and how those principles will be applied in the organization. In the organization, all those activities are needed to be conducted in a very effective way, and for those particular concern, effective operations planning is essentially required. Now let's understand the various approaches to operations planning. The approaches to the operations planning and scheduling or the master schedule are the forward scheduling and the backward scheduling. Forward scheduling is a part of scheduling in which the planner uses the date of order that was being received as the beginning point for forwarding the plan and actions that have been initiated. In terms of the backward planning, a sort of scheduling in which the planner starts with the order delivery date and works backward to arrange all the tasks. So the activities that are being undertaken right from the usage of raw material to the actual consumption of goods to the finished goods, such type of activity is called as the forward scheduling, and the backward scheduling is a concept wherein what is the tentative delivery date of a consumer to the date of start of production in a reverse order situation is the approach of master schedule. Master schedule or again either may be a forward scheduling or it may be a backward scheduling. Simultaneously, when the master schedule activity it is being undertaken, it is necessary to see that there is operational planning activity or workplace planning into existence. The workplace planning focuses on the concept of applicability of the human resource or the labor management techniques, which always try to aims to see that the efficiency of the labor is ultimately increased and large number of goods and services are being manufactured with an limited labor resource that can be utilized. The workers' control guarantees that the machinery, raw materials, and the workforce produces the greatest amount of production. So, in order to see that there is a proper chain or a link and a schedule between the workplace, between the machinery, between the labor, the availability of raw material, and the workforce that is being employed or deployed at a particular stage, for those particular concern, the workplace planning is essentially required. And the workplace planning leads to a certain concern for the application of the master schedule, which in return will increase the productivity of the organization. So in order to develop the input and output control, it is necessary to see that the efficiency and raw materials of all the factors of production that are going to be employed is running in a very effective way and implemented in the organization. Now let's understand what are the various workplace planning objectives. That is, the various task orders can be prioritized. So based on the priority, based on the preferences, the various task orders can be organized and they can be conducted. Keeping the track of processes amounts to the reporting and status of workplace orders to the control panel. So accordingly, when we have a master schedule or a workplace planning into existence, the track of all the activities with respect to whether the activity is been conducted, that is completed or not, can be identified very easily and the resources or the decisions can be undertaken in a very effective way. Record estimated to keep track of the capacity management. So based on the management of a certain capacity, one has to identify and see that how the records have been maintained and whether the records that have been maintained are maintained effectively or not. And fulfillment of such objectives also is needed to be taken into consideration. Ensuring the efficiency and production are being measured. So every stage we need to measure what is the efficiency of the production, and we have to also see that if the efficiency of the production is being measured, whether the target or the particular project that was being undertaken, whether the goals are being met by the organization or by the respective departments or not. And hence, operations planning and scheduling and control is a combination of the workplace planning and a critical plan with respect to the market schedule. So master schedule and the market schedule with respect to the demand and supply factors and the coordination of the workplace management of the workplace planning is essentially required. All production activities are interrelated and the information needs to be recorded at all the levels in the organization. Whatever action that is being initiated, a proper computation and record of data is needed to be captured, and accordingly, the record needs to be maintained in the organization. Now let's summarize what we have learned in this particular session. In this particular session, we have understood what do we mean by the master schedule. We have also seen how do we prepare a master schedule, that is the various steps or activities that have been involved in preparation of a master schedule, and how production activity and master scheduling planning is been interrelated or correlated with each other. And lastly, we have also seen about how do we correlate the master schedule and the workplace planning in for the successful running of the business organization. I hope you must have enjoyed the learning. Thank you for your patience listening. Thank you.